Red emergency lights flashed across the medical supply room where Dr. Rachel Moore counted inventory. She had been working on the Coalition warship Steadfast Dawn for 8 months now, treating crew members from 17 different species. Most days were routine checkups and minor injuries. This was not going to be one of those days. Her communication device screamed with an urgent priority signal. Rachel dropped the medical scanner she was holding and tapped the device. The voice that came through was rough, breaking with emotion she had never heard before. "Human doctor, come to my quarters. Deck 7, Section 12, now, please." Rachel recognized the voice immediately. Commander Torven, the massive Vrathok warrior who served as the ship's tactical officer. In 8 months, he had never spoken more than 3 words to her. The Vrathok were known across the galaxy as fearsome predators. They stood 9 feet tall with thick armored skin and claws that could tear through steel. They fought in the front lines of every major battle. They never asked for help. Rachel grabbed her emergency medical kit and ran. Her boots pounded against the metal floor as she raced through the corridors. Other crew members pressed themselves against the walls to let her pass. A Centauran engineer called out asking if she needed assistance, but Rachel was already gone. Deck 7 was the residential area for senior officers. Rachel had never been to this section before. She found Section 12 and pressed the door panel. It opened immediately. The sight inside made her freeze for just a moment. Commander Torven, the warrior who had personally led assault teams against enemy positions, who had survived 20 years of combat, was on his knees. His massive frame was curled protectively around something small. His armored shoulders were shaking. "Help her," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Please help my daughter." Rachel stepped forward and saw the child. The Vrathok cub was tiny compared to her father, maybe 4 feet tall. Her name was Kess. Rachel had seen her once in the corridor playing with a small toy. Now Kess lay motionless on the floor. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. Her skin, which should have been a healthy dark green, had turned a sickly gray color. Foam flecked the corners of her mouth. Rachel dropped to her knees beside them. Her medical training took over, pushing away the shock. She pulled out her scanner and ran it over the small body. The readings made her heart sink. Multiple organ failures, severe toxin in the bloodstream, neural activity dropping. The child was dying. "How long has she been like this?" Rachel asked. Her hands were already moving, checking pulse points, examining the eyes, feeling for temperature. 1 hour, maybe less. She was playing. Then she fell. She started shaking. "I tried to help, but I do not know what to do." Torven's massive hands hovered over his daughter, afraid to touch her, afraid he might cause more harm. Rachel pulled out her portable medical computer and connected it to the scanner. She needed information fast. The ship's database had files on most species, but when she searched for Vrathok juvenile medical data, almost nothing appeared. Adult Vrathok physiology was documented because they served in the military. But children? The Vrathok rarely allowed outsiders near their young. "I need to take her to medical bay," Rachel said. She was already pulling out an anti-grav stretcher from her kit, unfolding the lightweight frame. "I can treat her better there with proper equipment." Torven picked up his daughter with incredible gentleness. Despite his size and strength, he cradled Kess as if she were made of glass. He placed her on the stretcher and Rachel activated the anti-grav field. The stretcher lifted smoothly off the ground. "Come with me," Rachel said. She did not wait for an answer. She guided the stretcher out of the quarters and back toward the lift. Torven followed without a word. As they moved through the corridors, other crew members stopped and stared. Some had never seen a Vrathok show emotion. Some had never seen one move with such desperate urgency. Word spread quickly through the ship. The commander's cub was sick. The human doctor was helping. In the lift, Rachel kept checking the scanner readings. They were getting worse. Kess's heart rate was becoming irregular. Breathing was more labored. Rachel increased the pace, almost running now. Medical bay doors opened automatically as they approached. Rachel guided the stretcher to the main treatment table. The ship's AI medical system activated, sensors extending from the ceiling to scan the patient. AI access all available data on Vrathok juvenile biology, Rachel commanded. Limited data available. Vrathok medical information restricted to adult specimens. Juvenile physiology data insufficient for treatment protocols. The AI responded in its calm, mechanical voice. Rachel cursed under her breath. She looked at the readings displayed on the screens around her. Kess had maybe 6 hours before the organ damage became permanent, maybe less. Torven stood at the edge of the treatment area. His clawed hands gripped the railing so hard the metal groaned. "Can you save her?" Rachel looked at him. She saw fear in his eyes. Real raw fear. The same fear she had seen in the eyes of countless parents across multiple worlds. Pain was universal. Love was universal. It did not matter what species you were. "I will do everything I can," Rachel said. She meant it. "But I need you to tell me everything. What did she eat today? Where did she go? What did she touch? Any detail might help." Torven began talking. Rachel listened while her hands worked, setting up equipment, drawing blood samples, preparing treatment options. The race against time had begun. Outside Medical Bay, crew members gathered. Word had spread further. Some came to offer help. Some came out of curiosity. Some came because they respected Torven. The human doctor was attempting something that seemed impossible. She was trying to save a Vrathok cub with almost no data and very little time. Rachel did not notice the growing crowd. Her entire world had narrowed to the small gray body on the treatment table and the ticking clock in her mind. 6 hours, maybe less, time to prove what humans could do. Blood samples spun in the centrifuge while Rachel's fingers flew across the medical computer keyboard. Every second mattered. The screens around her displayed information that should have been helpful, but instead showed how little anyone knew about treating a Vrathok child. Kess lay unconscious on the treatment table. Monitoring wires covered her small body. The machines beeped steadily, tracking every heartbeat, every breath. Each beep reminded Rachel that time was running out. "Computer, compare Vrathok toxin readings with similar compounds in database," Rachel ordered. Her eyes scanned the results as they appeared. Nothing matched exactly. The toxin in Kess's blood was unlike anything in the system. Dr. Neil Grant rushed into Medical Bay. He was Rachel's assistant, a young human doctor who had joined the crew 3 months ago. His face was flushed from running. "I heard the emergency call. What do you need?" Neil asked. He moved to the secondary station and started pulling up data on his own screen. "I need information the computer does not have," Rachel said. She did not look away from her work. "Contact the bridge. Tell them I need access to any classified Vrathok medical files, military records, anything that might help." Neil nodded and opened a communication channel. While he spoke with the bridge, Rachel continued her analysis. The toxin was attacking Kess's organs in a specific pattern. Liver first, then kidneys, then moving toward the heart and brain. It was systematic, deliberate. This was not a random poison. "Captain Andros is sending the files now," Neil reported. "He wants to know your assessment." "Tell him I will have a better answer in 30 minutes, Rachel said. Her hands did not stop moving. She was preparing 3 different potential treatments, each one based on a different theory about the toxin's composition. Torven had not moved from his position by the railing. His eyes never left his daughter. Rachel glanced at him once and saw something that surprised her. Tears. The massive warrior was crying silently. She had read that Vrathok could produce tears, but the military files said they never did. Another thing the files got wrong. "Commander Torven," Rachel said gently, "I need to ask you more questions. When did Kess last visit other parts of the ship?" Torven blinked, focusing on Rachel's words. 2 days ago. She went to the observation deck. She likes to watch the stars. Was anyone else there? Several crew members. A maintenance team was working on the environmental systems. Rachel's mind raced. Environmental systems, air filtration, recycling processors. If something had contaminated the air in that section, it might explain the toxin exposure. "Neil, check environmental reports for the observation deck. Last 72 hours. Look for any anomalies." Neil's fingers moved quickly across his keyboard. After a moment, he stopped. "Found something. 48 hours ago, there was a brief pressure fluctuation. The system compensated automatically, logged as a minor incident." Rachel felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. "Bring up the air composition analysis for that time period." The data appeared on her screen. There, a spike in exotic particles. Trace amounts of something that should not have been in the ship's atmosphere. The automated systems had filtered it out within minutes, but those minutes had been enough. "It is a spaceborne pathogen," Rachel said aloud. She pulled up every file she could find on space-based toxins. Vrathok adults have immunity to most pathogens because of their thick skin and robust immune systems. But children do not develop full immunity until they reach maturity. So she breathed it in, Neil said quietly. Yes, and it has been in her system for 2 days, spreading. Rachel looked at the treatment options she had prepared. None of them would work now. She needed something else, something the computer could not calculate. She closed her eyes for 3 seconds, forced herself to think. She had treated hundreds of different species. Each one had unique biology, but there were patterns, similarities. If she could find an Earth species with comparable metabolic processes, she might be able to adapt a treatment. Computer, show me Earth reptile species with similar organ structure to Vrathok, Rachel commanded. The database displayed several options. Rachel studied them. There, monitor lizards. Their liver and kidney functions were remarkably similar to what she was seeing in Kess's scans. Not identical, but close enough. I am going to synthesize an antitoxin based on treatment protocols for monitor lizard poisoning, Rachel announced, modified for Vrathok mass and metabolic rate. That is completely experimental, Neil said. His voice was worried. We have no data on how a Vrathok will react. I know. Rachel was already pulling compounds from the medical storage. But doing nothing guarantees she dies. This gives her a chance. Torven stepped forward. His massive frame cast a shadow over the treatment area. Will it hurt her? Rachel met his eyes. I do not know, it might. But the toxin is definitely killing her right now. The Vrathok commander looked at his daughter, then back at Rachel. Do it. Rachel worked with steady hands, mixing compounds in precise ratios. The medical computer kept warning her that the combination was not approved for Vrathok patients. She overrode every warning. When the mixture was ready, she loaded it into an injector designed for large species. This is going to be administered in stages, Rachel explained. Small doses first. I need to monitor her reaction before giving more. If her body rejects it, I will have to try something else. She pressed the injector against Kess's arm. The medication hissed as it entered the bloodstream. Rachel immediately turned to the monitors. Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, brain activity. She watched them all. For 30 seconds, nothing changed. Then Kess's heart rate increased slightly. Blood pressure rose. The monitors showed the toxin levels beginning to decrease. It is working, Neil breathed. Rachel did not celebrate. This was just the first step. The antitoxin was fighting the poison, but the damage was already done. Kess's organs were failing. Even if they eliminated the toxin completely, the child might not survive. Prepare for surgery, Rachel said. I need to repair the organ damage before it becomes permanent. Neil stared at her. Surgery? Rachel, we do not have surgical protocols for Vrathok juveniles. One wrong cut could kill her. Then I will not make a wrong cut. Rachel was already pulling up anatomical comparisons on her screen. Get the surgical suite ready. We start in 10 minutes, she looked at Torven again. I need your permission to operate on your daughter. There are risks. Serious risks? The warrior nodded slowly. You have my permission. You have my trust. His voice was rough with emotion. Save my daughter, Rachel Moore, please save her. Rachel felt the weight of those words. An entire species' prejudice against humans, against showing vulnerability, against accepting help from outsiders, all of it set aside because of a father's love. I will, Rachel promised. Surgical lights blazed down on the operating table where Kess lay motionless. Rachel scrubbed her hands for the 3rd time, watching the antiseptic foam wash away. Through the glass wall, she could see Torven pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. His claws scraped against the floor with each step. 8 hours had passed since she had administered the antitoxin. It was working, but not fast enough. Kess's liver was shutting down. The kidney function had dropped to 30%. If Rachel did not act now, there would be nothing left to save. Neil stood across from her, already gowned and gloved. 2 medical drones hovered nearby, their multiple arms ready to assist. The ship's AI had done its best to modify surgical procedures, but ultimately, this would come down to Rachel's skill and instinct. Scalpel, Rachel said. Her voice was steady. A drone placed the instrument in her hand. It felt heavier than usual, or maybe that was just her imagination. She made the first incision. Kess's blood was darker than human blood, almost purple. It welled up from the cut and the drones immediately moved in with suction. Rachel worked carefully, following the anatomical map she had studied for hours. Frethok juveniles had their major organs in slightly different positions than adults. Everything was smaller, more delicate. Liver exposure in 30 seconds, Neil reported. He was monitoring the vital signs while Rachel operated. Rachel's hands moved with practiced precision. She had performed surgery hundreds of times, on dozens of species, but never on a Vrathok child, never on someone with so little medical documentation. She was essentially inventing the procedure as she went. The liver came into view. It was badly damaged. Dark patches covered almost half the surface where the toxin had destroyed healthy tissue. Rachel examined it carefully, identifying which sections could be saved and which were beyond repair. "I need to remove the damaged portions," Rachel said. "Neil, increase the clotting agent by 15%. Her blood is thinner than I expected." "Adjusting now," Neil confirmed. Rachel began the delicate work of cutting away dead tissue. Each cut had to be precise. Too shallow and she would leave toxic material inside. Too deep and she would remove healthy organ tissue that Kess needed to survive. The drones assisted, cauterizing blood vessels and holding tissue aside. Sweat formed on Rachel's forehead. The surgical theater was climate-controlled, but she felt hot. Her back ached from standing. Her hands wanted to shake, but she forced them to remain steady. There would be time to rest later. "Maybe. 4 hours into surgery," Neil announced quietly. "Her vitals are stable, 4 hours." Rachel blinked, surprised. It felt like minutes. She finished the liver repair and moved to the kidneys. Both were damaged, but the left one was worse. She might be able to save the right kidney with careful work. "Talk to me about filtration rates," Rachel said. She needed Neil to help her think through the implications. "Right kidney is at 40% function. Left is at 15%. If we can repair the right kidney to at least 60%, she might survive with reduced function in the left. Then that is our target." Rachel began working on the right kidney. The tissue was more fragile than the liver. Every movement had to be gentle. She used magnification to see the tiny structures, repairing damage at almost a cellular level. Outside the surgical theater, more crew members had gathered. Word had spread throughout the ship. The human doctor had been operating for hours. Some of the Vrathok warriors had arrived, standing silently behind Torven. They watched through the glass. Their presence felt like pressure on Rachel's shoulders. She tried to ignore it and focus on her work. "Blood pressure dropping," Neil said. His tone sharpened. "Rachel, we might be losing her." Rachel glanced at the monitors. The numbers were falling. Kess's heart was struggling. The surgery was putting too much stress on her small body. "Give her a stimulant." "Quarter dose," Rachel ordered. "And prepare the cardiovascular support system." Neil moved quickly. The stimulant went in through an IV line. Rachel watched the monitors while continuing to work on the kidney. The blood pressure stabilized but remained low. "Not good but not critical yet. How much longer?" Neil asked. "Another hour. Maybe 2. Rachel did not look up from her work. "I need to finish this kidney and check the other organs for secondary damage." Time stretched. Rachel fell into a rhythm. Cut. Suture. Cauterize. Check vitals. Repeat. Her world narrowed to the small body on the table and the instruments in her hands. Nothing else existed. Somewhere around hour 6, Rachel's hands began to cramp. She paused, flexing her fingers. The muscles screamed in protest. She had been holding instruments, making tiny, precise movements for too long, but she could not stop. "Not yet. Neil, I need you to take over for 2 minutes. Just hold this tissue aside while I stretch." Neil moved into position. Rachel stepped back and rolled her shoulders, stretched her arms, flexed her hands repeatedly until the cramping eased. Through the glass, she saw Torven watching her. His expression was unreadable. Rachel stepped back to the table and resumed work. The right kidney was as repaired as she could make it. She moved to examine the left kidney. It was worse than she had thought. The damage was extensive. She made the decision quickly. "The left kidney cannot be saved. I am removing it entirely. She will have to survive with one." "Can Vrathok live with a single kidney?" Neil asked. "We are about to find out." Rachel began the removal procedure. It was faster than the repair work but still required care. She did not want to damage any surrounding tissue. Another hour passed. Rachel removed the destroyed kidney and carefully checked all the remaining organs. The heart showed some stress but no permanent damage. The lungs were clear. The digestive system was intact. Everything else appeared functional. Closing now, Rachel announced. She began the process of stitching Kess back together. Layer by layer, tissue, muscle, skin, the drones assisted with the final sealing, applying a synthetic membrane that would help the wound heal faster. Surgery complete, Rachel said. Her voice was hoarse. She realized she had barely spoken during the last 2 hours, moving her to recovery. The drones lifted Kess gently and transferred her to a recovery bed. Rachel pulled off her surgical gloves and gown. Her scrubs underneath were soaked with sweat. She felt exhausted, drained, but the job was not finished. She needs constant monitoring for the next 12 hours, Rachel told Neil. I want vitals checked every 5 minutes. If anything changes, anything at all, you wake me immediately. You are going to rest? Neil sounded surprised. Rachel shook her head. No, I'm going to sit right here and watch her. Sleep can wait. Darkness filled the medical bay except for the soft glow of monitoring screens. Hour 18. Rachel sat in a chair pulled close to Kess's recovery bed. Her eyes burned from staring at displays. Her body ached in places she had forgotten existed. But she remained alert, watching, waiting. Kess's breathing was steady but shallow. The monitors showed improvement in some areas. The repaired kidney was functioning at 52%. Heart rate was stable. But her brain activity remained lower than it should be. That worried Rachel more than anything else. Torven sat on the floor nearby. He had refused to leave. Captain Andros had sent 3 messages ordering him to rest. Torven had ignored all of them. Now the massive warrior sat with his back against the wall, eyes fixed on his daughter. He had not slept, had barely moved, just watched. Tell me about her, Rachel said quietly. Her voice broke the silence. She needed to stay awake and conversation would help. Tell me about Kess. Torven was silent for a long moment. Rachel thought he might not answer. Then he spoke, his voice rough but soft. She was born during a battle. Enemy forces attacked our colony world. My mate gave birth in a shelter while explosions shook the ground above us. He paused. My mate died 3 days later from injuries. Kess survived. She was always strong, always fighting. Rachel listened. She kept her eyes on the monitors, but her ears were focused on Torven's words. I had 2 other children, older. They died when a transport was destroyed. Torven's claws scraped against the metal floor. I thought I had lost everything, but Kess lived. She became my reason to keep fighting, my reason to survive. She plays with toys, Rachel said. I saw her once in the corridor. She had a small ship model. I made that for her. Something almost like pride entered Torven's voice. She wants to be a pilot, not a warrior, a pilot. She wants to fly between stars and explore. She is not like other Vrathok children. She is curious, gentle. She asks questions about everything. Rachel smiled despite her exhaustion. She sounds wonderful. She is. She is everything good that I am not. You are good, Rachel said firmly. A bad person would not love his daughter the way you love Kess. A bad person would not have asked for help. Torven made a sound that might have been a laugh. Asking for help is considered weakness among my people. I broke every tradition by bringing you to my quarters, by allowing you to treat her. Some of the other Vrathok warriors think I have dishonored myself. Do you care what they think? No. The answer was immediate. I care only that my daughter lives. An alarm beeped softly. Rachel was on her feet instantly, checking the monitors. Kess's heart rate had jumped, not dangerously high but elevated. Brain activity was spiking. The child was having some kind of neural event. What is happening? Torven stood, his massive frame towering over the bed. Rachel's fingers flew across the medical computer. The scans showed increased activity in Kess's brainstem. The toxin. It had reached her neural tissue. Rachel had hoped. The antitoxin would prevent this, but the pathogen had one final weapon. The toxin has a secondary phase, Rachel said. Her mind raced through options. It attacks the nervous system. I need to operate again. Again? But you just finished. Torven's voice held disbelief and fear. I know. But if I do not remove the HFY toxin from her neural pathways, she will suffer permanent brain damage, or worse. Rachel was already preparing instruments. I need to go in through the base of her skull. It is delicate, dangerous. How dangerous? Rachel met his eyes. One wrong move and I could paralyze her, or kill her instantly. Torven's claws dug into the railing beside the bed. The metal groaned. For a moment Rachel thought he would refuse, would say the risk was too great. Instead, he nodded slowly. Do what you must. I trust you. Those words felt like a weight settling onto Rachel's shoulders. Trust. Such a simple word, such an enormous responsibility. She wanted to tell him that she was not sure she could do this, that she had been awake for over 24 hours, that her hands were shaking, that she was terrified of making a mistake. But she said none of those things. Instead, she said, help me prepare her. Together they positioned Kess for the surgery. Rachel explained what she needed to do while her hands set up equipment. She would use microsurgical tools, the smallest available. She would need to navigate between vertebrae and enter the spinal column. One slip could sever nerves. One wrong cut could end everything. I cannot put her under full anesthesia again so soon, Rachel explained. Her body could not handle it. I have to work with only local numbing agents. She might wake up during the procedure. Will she feel pain? Torven asked. No, but she might be aware. If she moves suddenly, it could be catastrophic. Rachel looked at the warrior. I need you to be ready. If she starts to wake, you must keep her calm. Keep her still. Can you do that? Yes. No hesitation. Rachel began the procedure. Her hands moved with careful precision despite the trembling in her muscles. She made an incision at the base of Kess's skull. The drones assisted, holding tissue aside and providing light. Rachel used a micro-camera to see inside, navigating by instinct and knowledge cobbled together from multiple species. There, she could see the toxin deposits along the neural pathways, dark clusters that did not belong. She needed to remove them without damaging the delicate nerves around them. Rachel picked up a specialized tool, essentially a tiny vacuum designed for neural surgery. She began extracting the toxin deposits one at a time. Each removal took several minutes. Her hands cramped, but she did not stop, could not stop. Hour 20 passed, then hour 22. Rachel worked in near silence, broken only by the soft beeping of monitors and the sound of her own breathing. Sweat dripped into her eyes. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard and continued. Halfway through the procedure, Kess stirred. Her small body twitched. The monitors showed she was beginning to regain consciousness. Rachel froze, tool hovering millimeters from a critical nerve. Torven now, Rachel said urgently. The warrior moved to his daughter's head. He placed one massive hand gently on either side of her face. He began speaking in his native language. The words were soft, musical almost. A lullaby, perhaps. Or a prayer. Kess's eyes fluttered open briefly, confused, frightened. But she heard her father's voice and relaxed. Tears ran down Torven's face as he sang to his daughter, holding her steady while Rachel worked to save her mind. Rachel continued the surgery. Remove toxin, check surrounding tissue, move to the next cluster. Her hands moved automatically now, muscle memory and training taking over where conscious thought had begun to fail. Hour 30. Rachel's world had become nothing but neural pathways and toxin clusters. Her hands moved automatically. Extract, verify, move forward, extract, verify, move forward. The rhythm was all that kept her going. Neil had returned 2 hours ago. He stood nearby, ready to assist, but mostly just watching in stunned silence. He had brought stimulant injections. Rachel had refused them. She did not trust her judgment while artificially enhanced. Better to work through the exhaustion with a clear mind, even if that mind was shutting down from fatigue. The last toxin cluster came into view on her monitor. It was wrapped around a major nerve bundle. Removing it would require absolute precision. Rachel's hands trembled. She stopped, closed her eyes, and took 3 deep breaths. When she opened them, her hands were steady. She extracted the final cluster. The nerve bundle remained intact. Success, that closing the surgical site, Rachel announced. Her voice was barely a whisper. She began the careful work of sealing the incision. Layer by layer, the drones helped, their mechanical precision never failing even when hers threatened to. Surgery complete, Rachel said. She stepped back from the table. The room spun for a moment. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Rachel, you need to rest, Neil said. He reached out to support her, but she waved him away. Not yet. Need to monitor her recovery. I can do that. You have been awake for over 30 hours. You have performed 2 major surgeries. Your body needs rest. Rachel shook her head. The motion made the room spin again. I need to see her wake up. Need to know the surgery worked. Kess was moved back to the recovery bed. Rachel collapsed into the chair beside it. Every muscle in her body screamed. Her eyes felt like sandpaper. Her hands would not stop shaking now that the surgery was over. But she kept watching the monitors. Torven stood on the other side of the bed. He looked down at his daughter. Will she wake soon? I do not know, Rachel admitted. Her brain activity is improving, but I do not know how much damage the toxin caused before I removed it. We have to wait, such a simple concept. Such torture to practice. Rachel had done everything medically possible. She had pushed past every limit of her training and experience. Now the outcome was beyond her control. Kess's body would either recover or it would not. All they could do was wait. Dr. Helena Cross entered medical bay. She was the ship's chief physician, a human who had been overseeing medical operations in another section during the emergency. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Report, Helena said. She looked at the monitors, then at Rachel. Her expression softened. Never mind. Neil can give me the report. Rachel, you are relieved. Go to your quarters and sleep. I need to stay, Rachel protested. That was not a request, Dr. Moore. It was an order. Helena's voice was firm, but not unkind. You have done excellent work. Extraordinary work. But you are no use to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. I will monitor the patient. If there are any changes, I will wake you immediately. Rachel wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine. But her body betrayed her. She tried to stand and her legs buckled. Neil caught her before she fell. Let me help you to your quarters, Neil said. Rachel nodded, too tired to protest further. She looked at Torven. Watch over her, please. I will not leave her side, Torven promised. Neil guided Rachel out of medical bay. The corridors were empty. Most of the crew was asleep. Ship's night cycle was in effect. Lights dimmed to minimum. Rachel's quarters were on deck 5. The walk felt like miles. Inside her room, Rachel collapsed onto her bed without removing her uniform. Sleep should have come instantly. But her mind would not stop working. Running through the surgeries. Second-guessing decisions. Wondering if she had missed something. Worrying about complications, her communication device chirped. Rachel grabbed it, suddenly alert. Was it Helena? Had something gone wrong? Dr. Moore, this is Captain Andros. I wanted to personally commend you for your work today. The entire crew has heard about what you did. You have earned great respect. Rachel was too tired to process the compliment properly. Thank you, Captain. Is Kess all right? Dr. Cross reports she is stable. Rest, Doctor. That is an order from me as well. The communication ended. Rachel set the device down and closed her eyes. Sleep finally came, dragging her down into darkness. She woke to someone shaking her shoulder. Rachel sat up, instantly awake. Medical training overriding fatigue. How long had she slept? The chronometer on her wall said 16 hours. 16 hours. She had been unconscious for 16 hours. Neil stood beside her bed. He was smiling. She is awake, he said simply. Rachel was on her feet and moving before she fully processed the words. She ran through the corridors, not caring that she was still in yesterday's uniform. Medical bay doors opened and she rushed inside. Kess was sitting up in the recovery bed. Her color had returned to healthy green. Her eyes were clear and alert. She was drinking something from a cup that looked comically large in her small hands. Torven sat beside her, one massive hand resting gently on her head. The child looked up as Rachel entered. Are you the doctor? Kess asked. Her voice was high and sweet. Papa says you saved me. Rachel felt tears sting her eyes. She had not cried during the entire crisis. Not during the surgeries. Not during the endless hours of worry. But now, seeing Kess awake and talking, the emotions overwhelmed her. Yes, Rachel managed to say. I am Dr. Moore. Thank you, Kess said seriously. Papa says I was very sick. I do not remember much, but thank you for making me better. Rachel walked closer to the bed. She checked the monitors out of habit. All readings were good, better than good. Kess's remaining kidney was functioning at 68%. Heart was strong. Brain activity was completely normal. The surgery had worked. The child would recover fully. You are welcome, Rachel said. How do you feel? Hungry, Kess announced. And tired. But Papa says I have to stay in bed. Your Papa is right. You need to rest for a few more days. Rachel looked at Torven. The warrior's eyes were wet again, but this time they were tears of joy, of relief, of gratitude so deep it could not be expressed in words. Thank you, Torven said quietly. You gave me back my daughter. You gave me back my life. I owe you everything, Rachel shook her head. You owe me nothing. This is what doctors do. We fight for our patients. We do not give up. Ever. Most doctors would have refused, Torven said. Most would have said the risk was too great. The data insufficient. You did not refuse. You fought for her as if she were your own child. Rachel smiled tiredly. All patients are my children, at least while they are under my care. 3 days after the surgery, Medical Bay had become an unusual gathering place. Crew members from multiple species found excuses to visit. They brought small gifts for Kess, toys, drawings, sweet foods from their home worlds. The child sat in her recovery bed surrounded by these offerings, delighted by each one. Rachel watched from her office. She had caught up on sleep and returned to normal duties, but she checked on Kess every few hours. The child's recovery was progressing better than expected. The remaining kidney had adjusted to working alone. All other organs showed normal function. In another week, Kess would be cleared to leave Medical Bay. A communication came through from the bridge. Dr. Moore, please report to the main conference room. Captain's orders. Rachel made her way to Deck 2. The conference room was rarely used except for important meetings. When the doors opened, she found herself facing not just Captain Andros but several other senior officers, and 3 Vrathok warriors she had never seen before. They stood behind Torven, who sat at the table with Kess on his lap. Dr. Moore, please sit, Captain Andros said. He was a Centauran, tall and slender with pale blue skin. His expression was formal but warm. We have gathered here for an official commendation ceremony. Rachel sat confused. Sir, that is not necessary. I was just doing my job. You went far beyond your job, Captain Andros said. You performed 2 experimental surgeries with minimal data. You worked for over 30 consecutive hours. You saved a life that every medical protocol said was unsavable. He stood and held out a small box. The Coalition Medical Service awards you this Star of Merit for exceptional medical service under extreme conditions. Rachel accepted the box. Inside was a medal, silver and blue, hanging from a ribbon. It felt heavier than it should. Thank you, sir. But truly, I was just applying basic medical principles. Do not give up on the patient. Find a way to help. Rachel looked at the Vrathok warriors. I think the real credit belongs to Commander Torven. He broke tradition to ask for help. That took more courage than any surgery. One of the unfamiliar Vrathok stepped forward. He was older than Torven, his armor showing scars from decades of battle. I am Commander Roth. I lead the Vrathok military division aboard this ship. I came to speak with you, Dr. Moore. Rachel waited. She had heard stories about Roth. He was legendary among Vrathok, a warrior who had fought in 50 major battles and survived them all. I opposed Commander Torven's decision to seek your help, Roth said bluntly. I believed he dishonored himself and our species by allowing an outsider to treat his daughter. I was wrong, he paused. You have shown us that strength comes in many forms. Vrathok pride ourselves on physical power, on combat ability, but you demonstrated a different kind of strength. The strength to continue when your body wants to stop. The strength to attempt the impossible. The strength to care. Roth removed something from his belt. It was a small crystal, deep red and glowing faintly. This is a warrior's token. We give it only to those we consider true warriors. I give this to you, Rachel Moore. You are a warrior. You fought for a life and you won. That is the greatest victory. Rachel accepted the crystal with trembling hands. She understood the significance. Vrathok never gave these to outsiders. This was acceptance, recognition, respect. I am honored, Rachel said quietly. We have more, Torven said. He stood carefully setting Kess on the chair. He approached Rachel and knelt. The massive warrior knelt before her. In Vrathok tradition, when someone saves a family member's life, they become part of the family. We have a ceremony called the binding. It makes you blood family. Rachel's eyes widened. Torven, I do not know if that is appropriate. I am not Vrathok, you are now, Roth said. If you accept. Rachel looked at Kess. The child was watching her with bright, curious eyes. The same eyes that had been closed and dying just days ago. How could she refuse? I accept, Rachel said. Torven cut his palm with one claw. Dark purple blood welled up. He offered his hand to Rachel. She understood. She picked up a medical scalpel from her kit and made a small cut on her own palm. Red blood mixed with purple as they clasped hands. You are Pack's sister now, Torven said. His voice was thick with emotion. My daughter is your daughter. My honor is your honor. My life is yours if you need it. And mine is yours, Rachel replied. She felt something shift inside her. A connection. A bond that transcended species and culture. Kess jumped down from the chair and ran to Rachel. The child wrapped her small arms around Rachel's legs. Does this mean you are family now? Yes, Rachel said, picking up the child. I am family now. Captain Andros cleared his throat. Well, this is unprecedented. But congratulations, Dr. Moore. You have achieved something no human has before. He smiled. Now back to business. We have new orders. The ship is being assigned to escort a medical convoy through contested space. Given recent events, I am assigning Commander Torven and his division to specifically protect Medical Bay during any engagements. Dr. Moore, you will have the best protection in the fleet. Thank you, Captain, Rachel said. She set Kess down. When do we depart? 2 days. That gives young Kess time to fully recover before we enter dangerous territory. The meeting concluded. As the officers filed out, Roth approached Rachel once more. You changed something important. Before, Vrathok saw humans as weak, soft. We respected your intelligence but not your strength. Now we understand. Humans are strong in ways we never considered. You do not give up. You do not abandon your own. These are warrior traits. We were wrong to dismiss you. Rachel felt the weight of those words. One emergency, one sick child, one desperate surgery. And she had changed how an entire species viewed humanity. We are stronger together, Rachel said. All species. That is what the coalition is supposed to be about. Yes, Roth agreed. But sometimes we forget. You reminded us. Later, Rachel returned to Medical Bay. Kess was back in her recovery bed, playing with a small toy ship. Torven sat nearby, watching his daughter with an expression of pure contentment. She asked for you 3 times today, Torven said. She wants you to read her a story before sleep. Rachel smiled. I can do that. What kind of stories does she like? Adventure stories. Stories about exploration and discovery, not about war. She wants to see the galaxy, not fight in it. Good, Rachel said. She sat beside the bed. I know some excellent adventure stories. Kess looked up at her with bright eyes. Tell me about Earth. Papa says you come from a world with oceans and forests. Is it beautiful? Very beautiful, Rachel said. Let me tell you about it. As she spoke, describing the blue skies and green forests of her homeworld, Rachel realized something profound. She had come to space to be a doctor, to heal and help. She had succeeded beyond anything she had imagined. But more than that, she had built a bridge between species, between cultures, between different ways of understanding strength. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of opportunities. Opportunities to connect, to understand, to prove that compassion was not weakness but the greatest strength of all. Kess fell asleep listening to stories of Earth. Torven watched his daughter sleep peacefully, something he had feared he would never see again, and Rachel sat quietly, holding a red crystal in one hand and a child's tiny fingers in the other, understanding that she had found a family among the stars.